This episode of the Restoration Today podcast is brought to you by MasterTech Franchise. Let's face it, in the world today, you must adapt to survive. MasterTech does just that. With innovations in procedures, operational systems, and even the products they use, MasterTech is dedicated to professionalism, lifelong learning, transparency, and open communication, and giving back to its customers and franchisees. To find out more about joining the MasterTech family, visit mastertechfranchise.com. Hello there. Thanks for checking out this episode of the Restoration Today podcast. Today, I am excited to be joined by a dear friend and colleague and somebody that I've known since my early days in the industry. It is Katie Smith. She is the CEO of PHC Restoration in Lillington, and she is also the president of the RIA Board of Directors. So, Katie, I'm so excited to have you here. It's been a long time coming for this conversation. So,
finally, I'm so glad. I thought this day would never come. And then we're twinning. And we showed up wearing the same thing, which is just icing on the cake.
After texting last night saying that you were picking out your outfit and coordinating, have you ever had somebody coordinate? No, especially not to me. How did you know? Telepathic. I don't know. It's what we do. Okay. So share a little bit about your background, because you didn't start in restoration. So how did you get here?
I started in morning radio, which is odd, right? You've got some kind of large vehicle riding by your house and a window open. Okay. All right. Yep. So I went to school for broadcasting, and I really enjoyed working at a radio station. And I was an assistant producer for a morning show. It was very fast paced, very early in the morning. At an hour commute, would leave my house at 4 a.m. to get to work, and did all the things before the talent got there. And whenever they got there, they'd have ideas, and I would execute those ideas in just an unbelievable short amount of time. And I really liked what I did, but also didn't love the culture of radio. And it's all about talent and egos, and everyone's looking out for themselves. And that was the part that I just couldn't see myself being in for the rest of my career. And I just don't want to bounce from market to market, just feeling like I was always trying to move up. I'm very rooted in my community, and I didn't want to leave. And so I finally decided to leave the station, and just came here for a little while to the family business, and wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it. Wasn't sure what I should have been doing. And it took me a long time to really get my footing and really figure out my purpose here. And so I had some rough years doing that. And once everything just clicked and fell into place, I really just fell in love with the restoration industry. And a lot of that involved meeting other restorers and building relationships with other people who were in their family business, and hearing how they did what they did. And so once I started building my network, that really helped me to see what was possible with taking over the family business and leaving a legacy that I can be proud of.
Okay, so since you are a second generation owner, when did that transition start with ownership, and how did that go with your dad stepping out and you stepping in and taking things over? A lot of people are going through that right now, so I know you have stuff to share.
A lot of people will call and talk to me about that. A lot of times the parent will call and talk to me about that. And so I always tell them that whenever I go to events, like if I go to conventions or the VLN Summit, business planning retreats and things like that, I always notice the parent that's there with their child that they're grooming to take over the business. And so I admire that a lot. And so I tell them, it's important to really be developing them as leaders, and not just assuming that just because they grew up in the business that they just caught it by osmosis. I mean, and I love my dad. I respect him tremendously. He built a great company, but I think he just assumed that I knew what I was doing because I've been around it all of my life, and that I didn't even know what an adjuster was. I had no clue. So, there wasn't really an onboarding. It was just, throw you in there and you'll figure it out. And it took me a long time to figure it out. And so just thinking about, gosh, even a friend of mine who was talking about his son, he ought to know how to do that. And I'm like, how should he know? How have you ever taught him? He's like, oh crap, you're right, I haven't. And so just remembering that if you do have a child in the business, you have to onboard and train them just like you would any other employee. And I'm hoping that you do have a solid onboarding plan in place, because people don't just get it. They have to be taught.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit more, because you're somebody who's really good at hiring from outside the industry as well. You don't like pigeonhole yourself into people who know the industry. So how have you found success in that? Like, what are some of the key things that you look for in people to know that it's going to work in our industry?
Values. We hire for character, and we really modified the way that we list our job openings. And I will write it in such a way where it either clicks with you and you say, I want to work there, or either you say, this isn't the right place for me. And so it starts there, and then just going through, everybody interviews with me first. And I'm just trying to figure out what's in the heart of the person. And obviously there's some basic skills that you need for each position, but if you can't really get behind our workplace culture and our values and our mission, then it's not a fit. And so we spend a lot of time just trying to decide who they are, what they believe, and if it's a good cultural fit. And then from there, there's about 2 more interviews, and we bring other team members into the interview process so that they can help us out with that as well. So it's really just values, and so there are some industries that I look for, but I've been hiring a lot of veterans that are transitioning out of the military, either retiring out of the military or just a few years of service. Discipline is something that we look for, and a belief in excellence. And once we can kind of nail those things down, the rest falls into place. But there's just certain questions that I'll ask. I want to hear someone talk about their family, and just ask them what they like to do in their free time and what they're passionate about. And you can tell some people have never been asked questions like that in an interview before. Sometimes when they leave, they're like, we didn't really talk about the job. I mean, I'm just trying to get to know you, and feel comfortable, and just kind of get you at ease, and then learn who you are. And then we just go from there.
So how have you built and molded your culture over time? People always use the word culture, but it's different everywhere, right? So what is your culture at PHC? How did you build that? What is it?
Wow. I will say we didn't, well, you have a culture, whether you know it or not. We had a pretty toxic, miserable culture. And I hated going to work. And so that's how I knew that I needed to make some drastic changes. And then I just went all in on this at a time where culture wasn't something that people really placed a lot of importance on, because, you had your choice of whoever you wanted to hire years ago. And I just thought, well, what would it be like if we made this a place where I was really excited to get out of bed and go to every day? And so we used the book, The Advantage, by, taking everybody off site and starting with that, and then creating our playbook and really deciding on our values. And once we landed on those values, and there's an acronym for them, TECH, because we say we're all techs, especially during like hurricanes, large loss, we're all hands on deck, which means it doesn't matter what your job is, everyone's a tech. And so we're thankful, enthusiastic, compassionate, humble. And that's what we landed on. And we built everything around those values. Our mission is to make a positive impact on our team, our customers, our community. We intentionally put our team first, because we knew if we met those basic needs of our teammates, that they could carry that culture out into our customers' property. I think that's one thing of having that realization of everything inside your walls goes into your customer's property, and that impacts the customer experience, and it's either good or bad. And once we kind of figure that out, and then it all clicked into place, it was like, wow, all right, this is where we put our full focus. And I knew that I wouldn't meet every customer, and so therefore I had to hire and create a culture where those people who are out delivering our services, it's like the customer is still interacting with me and my values, even though they'll never meet me.
So how have you worked on, so you love being involved in your community and are passionate about being involved in different places. So how have you found the right places to be when you want to? I can tell that you're the type that wants to reach and serve kind of everywhere and do as much as you can, but you have to choose wisely. So how have you chosen?
The first thing I ask is, what's the time commitment? What's the meeting schedule? There's some pretty big boundaries around my family time. And so if something meets at night, that's a no-go. I do have one thing for my church that met at night. It's like once every couple of months, and I'm okay with that. But if it's me being away from home, that's not okay, because having dinner together at the table is like my thing. We don't mess with that. So when does it meet? Can I work it into my work day? That's my top question. And then the culture of the group that I would be volunteering with is important as well. I've resigned from boards before. And I even in my resignation, but due to a difference in values, I will no longer be able to participate. And when things are political, when things are just toxic, I can't. It doesn't matter how much I believe in what the mission should be. If it's not in alignment of behavior and people, then I don't want to do it. And so I just like places where I feel like I belong, and I like, community is a big thing to me. And so with RIA as well, I want to make that a place, not that it's not, but I know that we have some work to do where if someone, because look, my first couple of times visiting RIA, I didn't feel like I belonged. And so I could have quit and walked away instead of never coming back here again, but I'm just stubborn. And I said, I'm going to make this a place where people visit and feel like they belong. And so I just know that we're humans and we want to connect with other people who are going through what we're going through and who understand us and who support us. And so that's just important to me to have that in my local life and in my industry life as well.
So how long have you been involved in the RIA?
I've been on the board for, 7 or 8 years. And I started volunteering with the membership group probably about 10 years ago.
Okay. All right. So what kind of value have you found in RIA? And it's evolved a lot over that time and gone through different management companies, and like a lot has changed in a decade. So what value do you find for your company, for yourself in RIA?
So years ago, I would say the relationships and the people and the time and networking with them and bringing that back into my business, and just taking little things that I learned from different peers and using that in a way that works for me. And so that would be what I would have told you years ago. But and we went through a little transition there with our leadership company where we knew we could be doing better to deliver value, because at the end of the day, now you can network wherever you want to network. So networking alone is not of value.
Yep.
And so with the AGA and providing resources, tangible resources that people can use and do their jobs better, and to protect their profitability and their livelihoods, and to be able to use these resources that we're creating to not be so frustrated with running a restoration company. Because just in I think 17 years is how long I've been doing this. Just in that time period, I just see like quality of life kind of decline, because you're dealing with so many different third parties. And even if you're not on programs, you're still dealing with third parties, whether you want to or not.
Yep.
And if you just don't have the tools you need to be able to handle that, then you're going to eventually just throw your hands up in the air and say, I quit. And I don't want that for restorers. We need better than that. So I think RIA has done a tremendous job of providing better tools to restorers, and so much in the works to do even more of that.
So one of the terms that I know you like to use is everyday restorer, right? So our industry has changed a ton with mergers and acquisitions and consolidation and all of that, but there's still, like, the heart of our industry is still kind of these family owned middle-sized family businesses, right? So what does being an everyday restorer mean to you? And I also am curious what you would tell people that the RIA brings to that kind of business.
Yeah, just everyday restorer. I mean, you think about it, there are thousands of us out there. We're involved in our communities. We're providing jobs to however many people you have, whether it's 5 or 50. And not only that, just those people, but you're impacting the lives of your subcontractors, your vendors. You're making a meaningful impact in your community. And it's like I said, it's getting tougher every day to be a restorer. And when you feel like you're on an island and you're not connected to all of those other people who are going through the same things that you're going through, you just don't want to do it anymore. And I think that could have a lot to do with some of the changes that we're seeing in our industry as well. It's just people have lost their joy in running a restoration company. And so you can't do it by yourself. I mean, you can, but why would you when there are other people who have the same pains that you do? And so the thing about RIA is we're listening to all of those issues and those pain points, and we're figuring out, like, what are the biggest problems that every restorer has, not just this person or that person, and no isolated events. And then we're taking it and saying, what can we do about it? And then we create those positions, and then we advocate on behalf of restorers with all of these different parties that we have to deal with, whether we want to or not.
So you have your certified restorer designation, which is an advanced designation through the RIA. So what was your reasoning behind getting that, and what value would you say that you find in that might be worthwhile to other owners? You're smiling in a way that's like, I don't know that I have a good answer for this, but go ahead.
No, I have a great answer. And typically I would give you like a very like polished answer, but I'm going to give you like the real answer. I told you that I had some not so great experiences with my first couple of visits to RIA. I didn't feel like I belonged. And after just, I think it was the second convention I ever went to, I just had an interaction, an exchange with someone, and felt very much less than. And I was like, wow, like it was just very strange. And I think on the way home, we drove, it was close by, and on the way home, I was on my phone. And I was like, I'm going to figure out what all these little banners are on everybody's name tag. I didn't even know what in the world it was. And I was like, I'm not going, I didn't want to feel less than. And that's not a good reason to go and do it. But I was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to be the best version of me that I can be professionally. And I found the hardest thing that I could do, which would be earning my CR. And I did it. And the next year I got pinned. So, yeah.
Do people usually get it that fast? I do not think so.
Not now. You can't now because you have the pillar designation. So we revamped the CR. I had most of the prereqs, but I had to do some webinars and take a couple. I had to go to. I went somewhere near DC and had to take my content science and theory class. I did this with my husband because we were driving home. I said, "Guess what? We're going to do this." And he's like, "Okay." And so okay. And so we had to take the content science and theory, but we actually had everything else. And so we did the in-person class in Virginia as well. I was pregnant. It was a whole family affair, and got pinned in Colorado the next year.
Okay. Yeah. So talking about Josh, let's bring Josh into the conversation a little bit. So what is it like to run a restoration company with your spouse? Like, how do you two kind of organize that? I know you have different roles and stuff like that, but how do you manage that?
So about the same way I would answer the question about working with a parent. It can be chaotic. We have had to learn over the years that he has a lane and I have a lane, and I like our dance space. I don't go into his dance space. Dirty Dancing references are okay, right? I didn't even ask where I did that. Okay. Totally. No, we just have lanes. And, but even this morning, before 6 a.m., we were already talking about, something I said, hey, like we really need to have a regular meeting time because, we have those with all these other people. And I said, you and I don't even, do that. So even this morning, we realized that we have almost gotten too far out of each other's lanes, and we've got to, veer in a little closer there and work together and communicate better on a couple of things. And so I try really, especially when we have people involved, especially your technicians or just anyone really, they have to know who to go to. And if you don't make that abundantly clear, and if I start getting into something and answering a question that I have no business answering, then it confuses everyone. And so over the years, we really had to learn, like, I'm responsible for this, you are responsible for that. And we're just going to not do our own thing, do everything for the betterment of the company, but just not create any more confusion than necessary.
With the economy the way it is, so the new report just came out today that inflation's at 8.3%, right? So restorers are, everybody's having to change kind of what they charge and make up for that somewhere. So have you guys started adjusting your prices? And if you have, how are you communicating that to adjusters? What kind of pushback are you getting? Like, what kind of wisdom can you maybe impart on other restorers that are probably going through this, and maybe AGA resources that help with that?
Yeah, for sure. So the fuel surcharge is one that, Ben Justice put out that great video for that. And even I've noticed remote estimating platforms are really jumping on that as well. And so fuel is one you absolutely should be charging for. And we raised our pay for our team as well. And so we had to do a cost of living increase for them. And so we are having to capture that cost with our prices. And I will say one thing that I hear before all of this was happening. I hear a lot of my friends saying, "I just think we're going to stop doing reconstruction. We want to get out of repairs." And I'm like, "Why?" And they're like, "We can't make any money on doing it." And so it doesn't matter what inflation is like, what the economy is like. If you're not able to produce a great profitable estimate and know your cost of business and do budgets and job costing appropriately, it does not matter what inflation is like. You're going to hate doing repairs, and they're always going to be a thorn in your side. And you're going to want to say you're going to stop doing it all the time. And so I would just encourage everyone to make sure that they really understand how to budget, how to use some of the reports with the estimating platforms, to make sure your job costing is in order so that you know your cost of doing business.
All right. So, okay, I want to shift to more personal stuff unless there's more business stuff that you want to talk about. But
I'm strap on my seatbelt and just try to keep up with you.
My brain bounces all over.
Where are we going next?
Can tell. Okay. Well, you're a leader within the RA, within the industry, within your community, within your company, but you also are always continuing to grow and push yourself forward. I think so you can push other people or bring other people along with you. So what resources do you go to for growing, and who do you look to as a mentor? Those kinds of questions. Like, how do you keep growing?
Right now, just in the season of life that I'm in, I will say that the RIA board members and fellow executive committee members have been my mentors. And just in the season of life that I'm in, I've been looking for more spiritual mentors. Mm-hmm. And just, if you're not healthy mentally, physically, spiritually, then your whole business is going to suffer. And so I am not the type of person that's going to seek out someone who has scaled and, that looks impressive on the outside. I really want to spend time learning from people who have made a good living by doing great things and honoring God in the process. That's really important to me. And I'm not saying I was frustrated, but I was just really seeking out people to help me figure out how to incorporate faith in business, because you don't just leave that at the door when you walk in. And so I will say that Mark Springer has been awesome with that, Lee King as well, just Ben Looper, and just some of the people that I've had the opportunity to volunteer with. That was just an unexpected benefit of volunteering with RIA, that it just, with my spiritual life, has really helped me out tremendously.
So how have you, as a wife and a mom and a leader, found your balance there? You referenced it a little bit earlier when we were talking, but how do you balance between? You're good with that. I feel like a lot of people are not good with that, but you are like, I have to be out the door at this time.
Yeah. I will say that there are husbands and wives that run businesses together all day long, but this industry is so demanding.
Yeah.
And when you think about having a young child when both parents are running a restoration company, that is a lot on that kid, right? And so, and I will tell you that COVID, it really is what helped me see this a lot more clearly than I was seeing it. That I'm like, all right, if I can work from home and help him with schoolwork when schools are closed and do all these things. And, when I go back to normal, I'm not going to go back to where we were before of like sending him to, I say him, his name is Ezra. I'm not going to send Ezra to an after school place and wait till 5 so I can be here as long as humanly possible. It's like, all right, there are clear boundaries. Like 3:00, my day is done, but I'm not going to be, on Zoom doing meetings. That time is blocked out. I pick him up from school. I'm not on the phone whenever I do pick him up from school. But it means I get an earlier start to my day. I have some quiet time in the morning and get caught up on a few things. And maybe I, have a block of time at night where I might respond to emails and hit schedule send, so I'm not blowing up someone's inbox late at night. I don't stay up that late. I go to bed at like 9, let's be honest. But 8:45 is late in my world. So I have to make it work. But and granted, there are going to be times where, if we have hurricanes here, things like that, we won't see Ezra for a block of time. Sometimes a couple of weeks, we won't see, in passing, he'll be with my parents. And so during the normal times, we really focus on making sure that he is our top priority. And so he helps me set those boundaries in my work life. And here's the thing, it's like, you as an employer, you hire people and you pay them to do their jobs, and you have to let them do what you pay them to do. And so I have a great team, an awesome team, and so I can depend on them to get things done. But I don't have to be here in the building until 5 p.m. to be able to be effective at my job.
So how have you, kind of talking about the employees, how have you helped your culture be something that's, I know there's some flexibility, like people need to get their jobs done, but you're also not a clock watcher where it's like you have to sit in that chair until 5, even if you're off of a job site or whatever. Like, how have you managed to establish a workforce in a 24/7 business that doesn't have to be so like married to a structure like that, and have the accountability that people are going to stick to it?
I mean, you have to build trust with people. You have to hire the right people to start with. But people are parents. They're humans. They have other people that they may be responsible for. And just recently, I mean, we've had someone whose husband's had a major life altering event happening in his health, and they've needed to be in and out. And they set a schedule, and we work around it. I've had a person whose husband was deployed for 6 months, and at that time she's a single mom, and so that might mean that if we want to honor and recognize her, for Administrative Professionals Day, I may say, "Hey, bring your son into the meeting this morning." And so, like little things like that, you just have to know what's going on in someone's life and be flexible with them, give them some grace. I always approach things from the standpoint of, if I were the employee, what would I need at this point in my life? And so you have to work with people during different seasons of their lives, and you have to do that by building trust, and that takes a little while to do. Some people are so afraid to take time off when they first start here because I don't know where they worked before. I don't know what the mindset is, but I'm not saying it's fine, you don't have to come to work. You find people who are, well, this is what I do because I am a little bit of a perfectionist. I'm very hard on myself. I have unrealistically high expectations of myself. I kind of surround myself with like-minded people who also have that similar drive and work ethic and want to do excellent work. And when you hire people like that, they're already like, look, I've got to be here, but here's my plan that I've already come up with to minimize the impact on the company. And I'm like, great, sounds good. So that's how just hiring the right people. I know that sounds cliche, but it really works.
It's not cliche. It's true. Okay. I don't know that I have any more. I mean, we could go on and on. Okay. I do have one more question. I want to talk about the demographic that you're in. This is something that I've started talking to a few people about on the podcast, because you have a military base in your area that you serve, right? And so I'm sure that that's maybe a little different than the community that you serve. And like, are those government contracts when you go in, or is it the homeowner? Like, how do you deal with the different demographics in your area and different levels of income, different types of losses?
Well, okay. When you're talking about just our customers, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're just in a weird area, not a weird area. What's happening in our area is very strange right now. The amount of growth that's taking place here is mind-boggling, and it almost breaks my heart to ride down the road because all of our trees are being cut down. There's neighborhoods with 1,000 houses coming in, and I'm just like, wow. Because when you live in a town where when you go to the grocery store or you go out to eat and everyone there, it's unusual. Now there's like a bunch of Subarus and license plates from out of state, and I'm like, what is happening in my little town here? What?
Specifically Subarus?
A lot of Subarus.
Okay.
All right. So it's just a lot. It's and even when I hire people, so here's the first thing I want to say about all of this growth in our area. It's been great for me as an employer, because that means I do get military spouses, people transitioning out of military. Whenever they come here to live, they love it here. Even a project manager, she had some time here at Bragg, and she's from Nebraska, and she was like, I just love the trees here. And I'm like, what? Okay, all right, great. So she's like, I just wanted to stay here because it's nothing but fields. And so I will say that our demographics are changing tremendously. But it's not a bad thing. And there are a lot more properties here now. There are a lot more people to serve here now. But it's still at its heart a rural community. There's farmland everywhere. And so there is a very poor population as well. It's not uncommon for us to get called to multi-million-dollar homes and not in a manufactured home on the same day. That's just that's Southern living, not the type of magazine Southern Living, but that's real Southern living. So we just you have to serve everyone the same. And that's especially in the last couple of years where everybody felt the need to like put out some kind of public statement about what their beliefs are. Our statement is, these are our values and this is how we behave. And we do this for every property that we are in, every customer that we have. We may not see eye to eye on something like that. And their beliefs may be different than our beliefs, but they're humans and we love and serve humans. And we have a culture guide that we use during our onboarding process. And so we instead of letting everybody kind of figure out the culture, we wrote it all out. And it's, basically describing, here's how we behave here in this company. And we address that. It's like, you may be in a multi-million-dollar home one day and the next day, not so much, but that customer gets the same service as this customer because they deserve your best, because they're all going through something. And they need you to show up and tell them it's going to be okay. So you don't walk in there and act like it's, just some run of the mill water loss and it's the third you've seen today, because to them it's their first, and it can be really stressful for someone. So we acknowledge that and we treat them with compassion.
Okay. All right. Totally last question. Share one lesson that you have learned since you've been an owner of a restoration company, something that you would impart on other restoration owners as they go on their journey, a big lesson that you've learned that you've taken forward. Could be from something good, something bad, could be whatever.
Gosh. Well, I mean, I've learned a lot of lessons, but I will say I've had some really low lows as an owner. And I think that one lesson that I learned was, be really careful about who your influencers are, and putting the wrong people in the wrong job and jobs of, I don't want to say of power, but management jobs, and making sure that you have systems in place to monitor performance and making sure that you can measure everything that's happening, because when you can't, you have no clue what's going on. And so I had someone in a position that should not have been where they were, and they also were allowed too much influence in my life, and it wasn't good. And I didn't, and we just had negative impacts that kind of spiraled out of control from there. And we had to rebuild a lot from a lot of damage that was done. And so I just say, especially with project management, things like that, just having something in place to make sure you can measure performance, to know how your company is doing, and not just your financials, but like those leading KPIs, those lagging KPIs, and having a thorough review process every week, every month, every quarter, just so you're not flying blind. That would be my big lesson there.
Perfect. Katie, thank you for all the wisdom, all the insight. I feel like I jumped all over the place in all my questions because I had a lot to ask. Sorry, but
I was fast. I was surprised.
I try to keep them 30 to 40 minutes, and we're at 36 minutes.
Nailed it.
We're right in there. So, Twinning, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
For more Restoration Today, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, or find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts.